so that other folks can join us later. So thank you all so much for beaming in today, whether you're here with us live or watching this later. As you can see from our opening slide, we have a great lineup presenting today from amongst our wider team. Before we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of the region where I at the University of Maryland, College Park, and my SNAC liaison colleagues at the National Archives and Records Administration are based, the ancestral territories of the Piscataway, Nacotchtank, and their Indigenous kin and neighbors. At the University of Maryland, as a land-grant university, I want to further acknowledge the 202,000 acres of Indigenous land taken and distributed to the university under the Morrill Act in 1862. And especially today on Indigenous Peoples Day, I want to acknowledge the separation that these and other acts of colonialism and assimilation generated between Indigenous peoples and their homelands, as well as their knowledge held in archives, libraries, and museums. And I want to further acknowledge the continued power and resilience of Indigenous communities and nations for all of us working with Native and Indigenous colleagues with Indigenous historical knowledge and on projects like our event today and tomorrow. We're also extremely grateful for the patience and goodwill of our community-based colleagues as we try to work together to build reparative projects and shift professional practices. And we've got a lot of work to do, and we're really grateful to all of you for joining in that effort. And let's move to the next slide. And Marge, you're up next.
Kwai, greetings. My name is Marge Brushak. I'm at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm happy to serve as an advisor on this project. And I welcome you to the East Coast and all of the Indigenous lands here, for those of you who are elsewhere. And I'm especially grateful to work with Diana on this because so many of these Indigenous nations are poorly represented in archival platforms and poorly sourced across archival platforms. So I look forward to continuing this work and improving on this work. Thank you.
And Taylor.
Scanner Swaggle, what guided it does, nothing over the shutter, Megan the guard with Donald. But when Honyo, the Swallow, Nanda, SNAC, I got a drink for Yamita. Yagadan Honyo, scanner is for that cat. Yaki no Honyonge, so that's it. Yaki no Honyonge, Swajia. Yaki no Honyonge, Gassea Waxer. Ayawa Gwego Scanonka, Nickna, Gokivan. Ayawa Gwego Scanonka, Senunis, is whatever I knew. The guy who was got a doctor. On a gate, the yard what does it, then for an answer. It Daniel to one go. I'll give you a short translation of that. So I just introduced who I am. My native name or Ngahoi name is Wahat Daindi, means like he's on a new road or a new path. My English name is Taylor Leal Gibson. I'm from Six Nations. I'm Turtle Clan, Cuga Nation. And so what I just, a short speech I gave you was our welcoming speech. So we just acknowledge everyone, welcome you all to this space. I just want to send us messages of thankfulness and that you're all well and everything is going good today. We send a message to Sogatita, your ancestors, Swajia, your families, Dasia Waxo is your children. So we send us message of peace and friendship towards them as well. That when you return back amongst your lives, that you bring this message of peace. And that as you're traveling through our digital community here, that nothing upsets you or anything like that, and that you can work through any differences. And lastly, we just take you by the hand and give you a shake, so like a form of shaking hands, if you could do that today. And it's just a gesture of goodwill and friendship on our behalf. So thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. So we're going to start today with just talking a little bit about SNAC and why it could potentially be really useful and kind of exciting for Indigenous and Native historical records. So first, SNAC, as we know at this point, for everyone who got a chance to go to SNAC school, it's a really good discovery tool. So we know that archives and cultural heritage repositories hold vast collections of Indigenous and Native material and knowledge. And those collections are dispersed in part due to histories of colonialism and cultural genocide and collecting, and also due to kind of bureaucratic archival processes. And SNAC aggregates and networks together finding aids and catalog records for historical materials and archives at disparate institutions and geographic locations. And we've gotten some questions about Wikipedia. If you go on Wikipedia, you're rarely going to find those kinds of historical collections represented in Wikipedia, and SNAC really focuses on that and brings together archives and their descriptions in one platform. So that's kind of the big first piece. Second, descriptive flexibility. In other words, the ability to work outside of institutional and archival contexts in representing materials and allowing for more culturally responsive description in how we talk about and represent and share and discover archival materials. And the cool thing about SNAC is that that flexibility can grow as SNAC grows, as the platform grows, and as we do more projects like this one. And then lastly, of course, the collaborative and cooperative model of SNAC means that we can train and empower Indigenous and ally editors who know this kind of content really well to actually shape what's in the platform, shape the content, and do the editing. So all of those things together make SNAC a potentially very exciting tool for discovering and helping to highlight Indigenous collections and historical records. Next slide.
My name is Irene Gates. I'm the Associate Archivist for Archival Processing at the New School in New York City on the unceded lands of the Lenape peoples. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about the Editathon last year, which grew out of conversations with Harvard Peabody Museum archivist Catherine Satrianu, who's here, about the potential for SNAC to facilitate tribal repatriation research. I had been working at the Peabody Institute of Archaeology in Andover, Massachusetts, and was struck by how the dispersed records of even a single archaeologist with an extensive network could support multiple repatriation claims. SNAC appeared to provide an unprecedented way to link associated individuals, institutions, fieldwork projects, archival resources, and more. Catherine suggested organizing an editathon as a way to bring people together to work on this project collectively. This suggestion has proven to be invaluable as the editathon format has allowed the project to grow and bloom organically as more and more people become involved. With the support and encouragement of Dina Herbert and Jerry Simmons at the National Archives, we put out a call for participants in the fall of 2019, and about 65 people signed up initially. Dina and Jerry taught SNAC schools to participants over several months, and anthropologist entities connected to multiple repositories or nodes, as well as Indigenous entities, were brainstormed. We asked participants to read the protocols for Native American archival materials, especially the providing context section, and shared ideas about how to apply them to this project. In the spring of 2020, we held a virtual 3-day event with around 20 people actively editing records. After the editathon, we reflected on issues brought up during the process. One was that participants had noted that the nationality field in SNAC was insufficient for expressing tribal identities and membership. We were also looking to do further community outreach and get feedback for what would be most useful for any future editathon at the 2020 Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums Conference, which was postponed due to the pandemic. We also knew that any future editathon should ensure fairly compensated Native community input. Catherine connected with Diana Marsh in the winter of 2020, and soon a second iteration of the editathon was underway. So let's now move on to talking about the current editathon with Lydia.
Hey all, my name is Lydia Curlis. I'm a first-year PhD student at University of Maryland. I'm also a member of the Nipmuc Nation. So for this, we're kind of going to focus on the goals of the editathon and kind of how they kind of came to be and how that built on the work of the 2020 editathon. So the first point is to facilitate discovery of archival material that has been dispersed to multiple repositories. As Diana kind of said earlier, SNAC has a lot of capability to do this work, and oftentimes collections and materials related to Indigenous folks are in these collections that are separate from these communities and oftentimes unfindable to the community. So in doing this editathon, we hope to increase discoverability. Another aspect is to create fuller records for Indigenous entities, including talking about them in the contemporary, their histories, and utilizing decolonizing methodologies. As we kind of worked through this, we decided to create a style guide, which you guys should have all seen. And really the point of the style guide in using decolonized methodologies is to really center Indigenous folks in the records in a way that hasn't previously been done. The next point is to facilitate knowledge sharing. And this really happens because of all of you. We hope that as you kind of move through this editathon and as editors in SNAC, you take this newfound awareness and new knowledge and can be able to spread that within your communities, whether you are a Native or non-Native person. The next point was to develop recommendations, protocols, and best practices. As I just mentioned, we created a style guide. We've created protocols for reporting sensitive materials. And we do hope that all these materials that we've created for this particular editathon will eventually live on SNAC and be integrated into their resources. And then the last aspect is community capacity building. So obviously, while SNAC allows us to see more Indigenous records and have them be more connected, it is also really important that we have Indigenous editors in SNAC. Much like Wikipedia, a lot of the editors currently are white and male. So in doing events like this, we're hoping to increase the amount of editors who are Indigenous and can do this work. And as another aspect of this editathon, we collaborated with an advisory board. So I'm now going to invite some of the advisory board members to kind of talk about their experiences.
I think Melissa,
everybody
you're
hear
up
me?
first. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Yate bene, Shea Melissa Stoner Yanisha, Hawathlana Nishla, Do Tachini Bushishti, Zanad Zani Nishla. Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Melissa Stoner. I am the Native American Studies Librarian at the Ethnic Studies Library at UC Berkeley. And I really feel like the description that Lydia laid out is really like what has like pulled me into this project, and just really looking at the different types of just utilizing metadata, you know, how Indigenous peoples are able to utilize metadata, and also like to further I would say further connect those dispersed records. I think that was one of my biggest, that was really exciting to me to see the bringing together of some dispersed records and, you know, of materials and stuff. And I'm going to let the other board members introduce themselves first, or if they haven't already, I'm not sure, but like, yeah.
So Taylor, you're next.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, Scano 8, so Grego. Hello again. I'd just like to talk about a little bit of my experience, my background. So I'm an instructor at Stations Polytechnic. So I teach adult education, I teach history, storytelling, and all that. And I've also worked as an archivist for the National Archives in Canada, or Library of Archives Canada. And prior to that, I was assistant researcher at the Indigenous Knowledge Center at the Oaxaca at Six Nations Polytechnic. Really, it's been a lot through teaching and my work in archives that I realized that a lot of my own people in my own community weren't aware of some of the great archival material that's out there that can, you know, help and support language revitalization projects. And so it's one of these big issues I think SNAC is really good at tackling, is creating this awareness and then accessibility to these collections. That's what I found within my own community and teaching. You know, a lot of folks had trouble even knowing where to look, what to look for. And so anything that can create awareness is really good. Of course, one of the issues as well is culturally sensitive material. you know, what to have and what not to have on display and who can access what, I think are major issues. Even to this day, I think we're still trying to tackle, you know, what's culturally appropriate to share. All right, so I'll stop talking there. I like the gab a lot, so I'll just kind of stop myself.
And Marge, did you want to chime back in?
Sure. So I came to this project from a background of doing what I call restorative methodologies and reverse ethnography. So in putting together my book on quote unquote savage kin, Indigenous informants and American anthropologists, my premise is that the savagery was on the part of the collectors more than on the part of the people being collected. But when you mention that certain collectors are scattered through archives and their material could be useful in repatriation claims, that's especially the case with people like Frank Speck, where tracking his work and tracking the informants he worked with required physically going to these multiple archives in DC, in New York State, in Northern Massachusetts, and in these various locations, and finding that in many cases, these archivists and curators were not speaking to one another. And there were cases where a tribal community had a claim on objects in a particular museum, and the data they needed to support that claim was somewhere else. But the museums, the archives, the communities, these were all scattered. So individually, I was able to pull a lot of material together and actually help with some repatriation claims while I was at it. But when you started this project, I thought, oh, this is just so needed, because not only are Indigenous people poorly represented in these particular archives, I mean, Wikipedia is chaos sometimes, but there is also no way for someone to find information about those individuals or about objects that they're associated with in these multiple locations. So really that's what draws me to this project. And I think it's brilliant the way you've organized Indigenous and non-Indigenous archivists, non-archivists, you know, all these people with these different skills and approaches to come together and try to solve this problem. So I think that's enough for me for now.
Does anyone want to circle back or add anything?
That I just want to say that I am super thankful that we have the turnout that we do, and I'm really glad that, you know, those of the people that are able to make it here today, thank you so much for putting your work into this editing, and happy Indigenous Peoples Day. You know, this is really great. So yes, I just wanted to say that I appreciate you all for being here.
And all of us on the team are so grateful to our advisory board members who have been having meetings with us since April, and long meetings and a lot of emails and a lot of back and forth. And we're just really grateful for all of the work. And I think the amount of materials that were put together for this event exceeded any of our expectations. And we're just really so grateful. And I can turn it over to Lydia now to talk some more about further logistics.
Awesome. So we just wanted to go over a couple of logistics just so you guys remember, because we do know that we've sent you a lot of emails in the last couple of weeks, and we want to just make sure that everything is kind of kept straight. We'll share the slides afterwards so that you have some of the links that are in here. But just so you all know, we're obviously having the opening event now. The chat, email, no Zoom room today, but there will be a Zoom room tomorrow, but that will be available from 9 a.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern. So just be on the lookout. We also have added a schedule of who to contact when. So if you're not sure who to contact or no one's responding in the chat, just double check that document, and there is a list of people that you can email. Just in general, as other things, the style guide, code of conduct, content caution / warning, the protocols for sensitive materials, the schedule of office hours is all in a folder, and it can be found linked to this slide. I also sent it in an email to all of you this morning. So if you have trouble accessing it, just let us know. Now I will kind of move it over to Catherine to talk about what's coming next and how this process will go.
Hello, I am Catherine. I'm at the Peabody Museum at Harvard, which is located on the tribal homelands of the Massachusetts people. And in addition, I am also personally grateful for the generosity of all the Indigenous Advisory Board members and participants who have offered their guidance, expertise, and collaboration to make this event possible. So this is just an overview of the process for editing, reviewing, and publishing the records you're working on. One thing to remember is today and tomorrow are great days to sort of push forward collaboratively and talk with everyone else about your editing. But we understand and appreciate that the records you work on may not be finished completely in the next 2 days, especially because we have this review process in place for them. So the overall process can be tracked in the entities spreadsheet where you've signed up to edit specific SNAC records. And you will see a status column where you can select which stage of this process you're in. And that should help you keep track of where you are and just give us an overview of how we're all doing in general. So the stages which are represented in that status column are, the first one is editing, when you're actually working on a SNAC record. When you have finished a SNAC record, you can send it for SNAC review through the SNAC dashboard. And if you want to know who your SNAC reviewer is, that is also listed in the entities spreadsheet. And your SNAC reviewer is specifically looking at how you have entered data and whether it matches SNAC best practices for data entry. So they aren't looking at content, they're more looking at just sort of overall formatting and SNAC guidelines. Once they have reviewed your work, you will implement edits from them. This is number 3. And then press publish, number 4. At that point, your SNAC records will be ready for peer review. And some SNAC records we have already assigned a peer reviewer for, and you will see that listed in the entities spreadsheet. If you have an assigned peer reviewer, it will have their name and their contact info. And you can publish your SNAC record and email a link to it to your peer reviewer. And your peer reviewer is really there to be a second set of eyes. And this was a system that was recommended to us by the Indigenous Advisory Board, that it would be beneficial to have this second pair of eyes to look at things and have a community context in mind and think about the content of your records rather than just sort of those SNAC best practices. After your peer reviewer has looked at your record, you can implement edits from them, which here is listed as stage 6. And once that's done, your record is really finished and you can hit publish, and that's that. So, oh yes, we have a note here on the bottom as well, that the SNAC team may tweet out your entity once it is completed. If you would prefer that your record not be tweeted out, just let us know and we will make sure it is not included in that social media outreach. I think that is it, but if anyone has any questions about this process, please feel free to reach out in the Google chat or by email to any of the people listed as contacts, and we will help you out.
So this is just a quick another logistics thing. We are so thankful that Melissa will be hosting Indigenous Zoom hours for participants who identify as Indigenous, and really the purpose of this is to kind of help create community between Indigenous participants. We ask that if you are not Indigenous or do not consider yourself Indigenous, that you do not come to these spaces. But just so everyone knows, that will be happening right after this call, and then we will have one tomorrow before the closing event.
Yes,
so
come out everybody. Sorry, Lydia.
Oh no.
I was saying, come out everybody. Come on, let's go talk metadata. Let's nerd out.
So just so you all know, this is just a shout out to our whole project team, so that our Indigenous Advisory Board, which is Marge, Stephen, Taylor Gibson, Eric, Kiahiahi, and Melissa. And then the core project team, which is myself, Irene, Dina Herbert, who will be on tomorrow, Jerry Simmons, who will be on tomorrow, and then Diana and Catherine. And then, so just so you all know, there is an event page, so you guys can check that out if you want more logistics. And then if you at any point tweet out during the day or have Twitter and want to tweet out, we have a hashtag, which is hashtag Indigenized SNAC. So feel free to use it anytime that you are tweeting about this event or your records or at any point in the future when you're working on SNAC in an Indigenous context.
Awesome. And we're about on time. Not too bad, everyone. So thanks so much. And I think now it's time for us to sign off. We'll all go off into our entities, but Indigenous folks, if you'd like to do Indigenous Zoom time, that's up next. And I think that'll be so much fun and so awesome. So thank you again to Melissa for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna post the link in the chat. So maybe we can just like, those that want to hang out or, you know, whatever. I will see you there. All right, bye.
Happy
you all.
editing. Thank you.
Take care.